My name is George Miller. I am 72 years old. I live alone in a small house in Denver. My wife died 3 years ago. Her name was Margaret. We were married for 48 years. I miss her every day. I am retired now. I worked as a teacher for 40 years. I taught mathematics at a high school. I loved my job. I loved my students. But my pension is very small. After I pay for rent, electricity, and medicine, I have very little money left. Maybe $200 per month for food and everything else. I do not go out much. I cannot afford it. I cook simple meals at home: rice, beans, bread, sometimes eggs. I am careful with every dollar, but I am not sad. I have my memories. I have my books. I am okay. Today is a special day. Today is my 50th wedding anniversary. 50 years ago today, Margaret and I got married. She is gone now, but I wanted to remember. I wanted to do something special. I decided to go to a restaurant. The restaurant where Margaret and I had our first date. It is called Rosie's Diner. It is still there after all these years. Same red booths, same checkered floor, same smell of coffee and apple pie. I put on my best suit. It is old. The sleeves are a bit short now, but it is clean. I combed my hair. I looked in the mirror. I said, "Margaret, this is for you." I walked to the restaurant. It is only 6 blocks from my house. I cannot afford a taxi, but the weather was nice. I did not mind walking. I arrived at Rosie's Diner. I opened the door. A young waitress greeted me. She smiled. She said, "Welcome. Table for one." I said, "Yes, please." She took me to a booth by the window, the same booth where Margaret and I sat 50 years ago. I sat down. I looked at the menu. Everything was so expensive now. A hamburger was $18. A piece of pie was $8. Coffee was $4. I remembered when everything cost less than $1. I looked at my wallet. I counted my money carefully. I had $23. I had been saving this money for 2 months, just for today, just for this meal. I decided to order something simple, just a bowl of soup and a coffee. That would be $11. I would have $12 left for the rest of the month. It was okay. Today was worth it. The waitress came back. She had a notepad. She said, "What can I get for you, sir?" I said, "I would like the tomato soup and a coffee, please." She wrote it down. She said, "Is that all?" I nodded. She smiled and walked away. I sat there waiting. I looked around the restaurant. There were families eating together, young couples laughing, children playing. Everyone looked happy. I felt a little lonely, but I also felt grateful. I had 48 beautiful years with Margaret. Many people never have that. The waitress brought my soup and coffee. She said, "Here you go, sir, enjoy." I said, "Thank you." I started eating slowly. The soup was hot. It was delicious. The coffee was strong, just how I like it. I tried to make the meal last. I did not want it to end too quickly. I wanted to enjoy every moment. I ate 1 spoonful at a time. I sipped my coffee slowly. I looked out the window. I remembered sitting here with Margaret 50 years ago. She wore a yellow dress. She was so beautiful. She laughed at all my jokes. I knew that day that I would marry her. 40 minutes passed. I finished my soup. I finished my coffee. It was time to pay. I felt good. This was a good way to remember Margaret. The waitress came to my table. She put down the bill. I picked it up. My hands started shaking. The bill said $47. $47. I looked again. I could not believe it. The soup was $11. The coffee was $4. But there were other items listed. Steak dinner, $25. Apple pie, $8. Extra coffee, $4. I looked up at the waitress. I said, "Excuse me, miss, there is a mistake. I only ordered soup and coffee." She looked at the bill. Her face changed. She looked confused. She said, "Oh no. I am so sorry. Let me check with the kitchen." She walked away. I sat there nervous. My heart was beating fast. I only had $23. I could not pay $47. What would happen? Would they call the police? Would they think I was trying to steal food? The waitress came back. She had the manager with her. The manager was a large man with a red face. He looked angry. He said loudly, "Sir, are you saying you did not order this food?" I said quietly, "Yes, sir. I only ordered soup and coffee. Nothing else." He said, "The kitchen made this food. Someone has to pay for it." I said, "But I did not order it. There must be a mistake." Other people in the restaurant started looking at us. I felt ashamed. My face turned red. The manager said, "Sir, the bill is $47. You need to pay it." I said, "I only have $23. I cannot pay more than that. Please check your records. I only ordered soup and coffee." You can ask the waitress. The waitress looked down. She looked scared. She whispered, I might have mixed up the orders, but I am not sure." The manager got angrier. He said, "Sir, we cannot let you leave without paying. If you cannot pay, I will have to call the police." I felt terrible. I said, "Please, sir, I am not a thief. I am a retired teacher. Today is my wedding anniversary. My wife died 3 years ago. I just wanted to have a simple meal to remember her. I swear I only ordered soup and coffee." The manager did not care. He said, "Everyone has a sad story. You still have to pay the bill." I did not know what to do. I took out my wallet. I put my $23 on the table. I said, "This is all I have. Take it, I am sorry." The manager looked at the money. He said, "This is not enough. You still owe $24. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind me. A man's voice. The voice said, "I will pay the rest." I turned around. A young man stood there. He was maybe 30 years old. He wore a suit. He looked kind. He walked to our table. He said to the manager, "I will pay his bill. All of it." Here he gave the manager a credit card. I said, No, you do not have to do this." The young man smiled. He said, "Please, sir, let me. It is okay." The manager took the credit card. He walked away, still looking angry. The young man sat down across from me. He said, "Are you all right, sir?" I had tears in my eyes. I said, "Thank you. But why? You do not know me." He smiled. He said, "My grandfather was a teacher too. He died last year. He always told me to help people when I can. When I heard you say it was your anniversary and your wife passed away, I thought of him. I thought of my grandmother. They were married for 52 years. I wiped my eyes. I said, "You are very kind. I do not know how to thank you." He said, "You do not need to thank me. Just enjoy your coffee. And tell me about your wife. What was her name?" I smiled. I said, "Margaret." Her name was Margaret. And for the next hour, I told him stories about Margaret. About our first date in this restaurant. About our wedding day. About our 48 years together. About the house we built. About the garden she loved. About everything. The young man listened. He really listened. He smiled. Sometimes he laughed. He ordered more coffee for both of us. He ordered 2 pieces of apple pie. He said, "My treat. For your anniversary." We talked and talked. I had not talked to anyone like this in 3 years. Not since Margaret died. It felt good. It felt like I had a friend. Finally, it was time to go. The young man walked me outside. He said, "Mr. Miller, "Can I give you a ride home?" I said, "Oh no, I can walk." He said, "Please, I insist." He drove me home in his car. When we arrived at my house, he said, "Mr. Miller, can I ask you something?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Would it be okay if I visited you sometimes? I would like to hear more stories about your life, about teaching, about Margaret." I felt my heart warm. I said, "I would like that very much." He smiled. He said, "Great. I will come by next week." And Mr. Miller, happy anniversary. I went inside my house. I sat in my chair. I looked at Margaret's photo on the wall. I said, "Margaret, I think you sent him to me. Thank you." That night, I did not feel lonely. I felt grateful. I went to the restaurant expecting to eat alone. Instead, I made a friend. I went there with $23 and a broken heart. I left with a full heart and hope. The young man's name is Daniel. He did visit the next week, and the week after that. Now, 6 months later, he visits me every Sunday. He brings groceries. We cook together. He asks me about math, about teaching, about life. He calls me Grandpa George. Last month, Daniel got married. He invited me to his wedding. He introduced me to his bride. He said, "This is Grandpa George. He is family." I cried. I was so happy. That day at the restaurant, I thought I was going to be humiliated. I thought I would be arrested. I thought it was the worst day. But it became one of the best days of my life. Because one person showed kindness. One person saw me, not as a poor old man, but as a human being, with a story, with a heart, with value. I learned something important that day. Sometimes our darkest moments bring the brightest blessings. Sometimes, when we think we are alone, help comes from unexpected places. Sometimes, strangers become family, and I learned that kindness is never wasted. The kindness Daniel showed me that day changed both our lives. I got a grandson, he got a grandfather. We both got family. Now, when I pass by Rosie's Diner, I do not feel sad, I feel grateful. Because that is where my new life began. That is where I learned that it is never too late. It is never too late for friendship. It is never too late for family. It is never too late for hope. What would you do if you saw someone being treated unfairly at a restaurant? Would you help them? Tell me in the comments below. Where are you from? What did you think of this story? If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Learn English through powerful stories that touch your heart.